Alright, ladies and gentlemen, day one of our Promesa notes. I am looking at the book, so if you want to pop it out and turn it to page 206, everything that we will do in terms of notes will come out of the book, which is quite the change from those of you who had me during the semester, last couple years in math class at Holland High. I am really trying to, with this college class, try and teach you how to be a college student. And a lot of the time, when it comes to college students, you have to be able to read a book, specifically a math book if you're taking a math class. Okay? So, when you are looking at this book, 206, hopefully you're with me, and the first thing it's doing is talking about interpreting graphs. This is a fairly easy section as long as you remember that every point on a graph has an x and a y. So whenever you're looking at a data table, it's always x and then y in your columns. This is the x point giving you the point 1, comma 55, and so on, right? You can also see tables that are sideways like this, and those always have x there and y there, and then it'll have your data points, and you'll have the point, let's say like this, that would give you the point 1, 2. So points put as tables will look like this often, but remember x is always the first and y is always the second. That's how they work. Then they showed a picture here. I'm trying to see how I can do this without messing up this tape here. This is going to be all new to me too. Okay. Down at the bottom here, that you can see here is the points from this graphed, and it causes what's almost a linear equation to do that. That is actually, you can find that line by using what's called linear regression. That's a statistics thing. We're not going to get that hard in this class. In fact, today, let's go on to this next page, 207, and just look at some of these examples that you will see similar to problems on the homework. So every single problem on the homework, if I go a few pages over, you can see says, plotting points in a rectangular coordinate system. So go look to where we did that. Interpreting graphs. Well, that's actually the first thing we're doing, right? The second thing is plotting points in a rectangular coordinate system. So then they tell you, okay, well, this is objective 2, and this is doing that. So make sure you're looking at that, okay? All right, so an example 1, interpreting a graph. When I'm looking at the graph right here, and it says, for which month was the number of clients the greatest? Well, the number of clients the greatest, if I look on the y-axis, I can see that the highest point was at, well, of course, 12 months, the 12th month, right, December? But I could just look at this table too and see, of course it is, because there's 90 and that's the biggest number. So it's reading a table or a graph, etc. Okay, and what does it mean? So what does month 12 mean? Well, that means December, right? I know you can see all these answers here. I'm just trying to go over them a minute, okay? For how many clients were served in the first month? Well, the first month is February, 55 clients, right? Okay. Which month corresponded to 60 clients served? So looking for 60. Oh, there it is. April. Is there any other ones? Nope. So month 4 or April, right? Between which 2 months did the number of clients decrease? Well, if I'm looking at it, it looks like it decreased here. Up, 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 up. Same. Decreased here. Up, up. So really, there's 2 answers here, right? Between month 3 and 4. And between months 9 and 10. And that's what they wrote too, right? Or if you wanted to say between March and April, or between September and October, that would also be correct. The number of clients remained the same between months 8 and 9. Oh, excuse me. To which 2 months did the number of clients remain the same? I kind of already said that. 8 and 9, right? Or August and September, okay? All right, so following every one of these examples is a skill practice problem. And after today's notes, these videos will get a little shorter because really you can look at the examples. I'm going to go over the skill practice unless I feel there's an example here or there that you need to go over. This is probably pretty self-explanatory. Maybe press pause a minute, look at the skill practice problem. On your notes, which by the way, you should have a pad of paper like this ready to take notes from these videos, slash from the book. I'll give you some hints on some things that I think you should do. But let's try skill practice number 1 through 4. That's this first skill practice here. And there's 1 through 4 because that's what's referring to this graph. So take a look at this graph. Maybe pause the video a second. See if you can answer 1 through 4. Come back and check your answers. Okay? Pause it. Okay. So, again, this shows the number of new movie releases each month for a recent year. Month 1 represents January. right? So month 12, of course, is December, okay? So month 1 was 30, etc. So let's answer these questions. For which month was the number of new releases the greatest? Well, the greatest on here looks like that one right there, month 10 or October, right? So number 1, month 10. Or again, if you want to put October, I don't need you to put both answers. One of the two answers is good, okay? Number 2, how many movies were released in June? Month 6. So month 6, let's see. That looks pretty much like 30, doesn't it? So I'm going to put for number 2, 30 movies. Okay. Number 3, okay. Which month corresponds to 40 movies being released? Okay, well 40, follow it, looks like right there. There's nobody else, so month 2. Okay. Okay. And then which 2 months had the same number of movies released? Let's see. Looks like there's 30 there and there's 30 there. Is there anybody else that... Those are all different. Those are all looks like just month 1 and month 6, right? So, for the fourth one, month 1 and 6. Okay? Alright. So, oftentimes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to want you to do the skill practice problems in your notes. And trust me, you're going to want the skill practice problems in your notes. How do you take these things in your notes? Really, how do you read a textbook and take out of the textbook what's important? Because many of you have not had to do that, especially for math. Really what I want you to do is do your notes in a way that would help you on a homework quiz tomorrow. Okay? We've said it before, I'll say it again. Your homework quizzes are open notes, open homework. Okay? I don't want you to have your book open. I really hope I can trust you not to do that. Not that it's going to matter that much because you have it here anyway. But if we were in class, I would have no books open. So just continue to work through these, and that's where you're going to ask the questions, because then the homework will have to relate to these. Okay? All right, so for number 2 here, what I'd really like you to do, okay, you can see here, the next example is going to be on the next page here. But we're talking about plotting points in the rectangular coordinate system, right? So really, you should draw this in, and I don't need you to draw the points there. We're going to do something else with it, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have you graph yourself, a pretty solid sized picture here, because we're going to label some things here. Hopefully you remember some things, and they're all in this picture here, and they're all in the writing there, but I'm going to go over it anyway. That this axis here is called the y-axis. Okay, that this axis here is called the x-axis. Do you remember what this point right here is? Hopefully you remember that that is called the origin, and that is 0, 0. The origin means to start, right? Let's see, and then I'm going to put some tick marks on here. You should probably go up and down to 8 and -8 in each direction. And the reason for that is because we're going to use this graph actually for what we're about to do on the next example anyway. Okay. All right. So we've got our origin. Okay. We've got our what's called quadrants. If you remember, quadrants always start in the first quadrant, and they go counterclockwise. So this is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Or if you want to write 1, 2, 3, 4, same thing, right? Alright, and then the other thing is, what about these points in here? What do we know about all points in the first quadrant? We know they are all positive, positive. We know all points here are negative, positive. We know all points here are negative, negative. And we know all points here are positive, negative. Okay? So we're going to get into some points here in just a second. That's really what this whole thing is down here about. Okay? I would have you're going to always be looking at my teacher's edition, and I wrote all over this thing. So you're just going to see what I'm writing here. That I wanted you to copy and label this in. I think if we were in class, I might have put a few more dots on there to see if you could recognize what they were. But we're going to do that on the next page. Let's flip over here to page 208. Okay, try and slide you in here so you can see here. And it wants us to, an example 2, just plot some points. Okay, so plotting 4, 5 is over 4, up 5. Negative 4, negative 5 is negative 4 left, negative 5 down. Negative 1, 3. Negative 1 in the x direction, 3 up in the y direction. Hopefully you remember all these things. But what do we do when they're fractions? Right? So 1/2 would mean over to the right 0.5, negative 7/3. Well, you might want to put that in your calculator. 7 divided by 3 is negative 2 1/3. so negative 2 and 1/3. Look it, that's not on a line. That's just below it right there, right? It's halfway this way, and it's 2 1/3 that direction, okay? All right, so negative 2, 0 is negative 2 in the x, 0 in the y, remember? 0, 0 is the origin. And then pi 1.1. Well, hopefully you remember pi is 3.14. So 3.14 is just a little past 3. And then up to 1.1 is just a little past 1. And they plotted that point there. Take a pause a second. Hopefully you've already drawn this graph in here. And let's just go do the skill practice problem number 5 here on that same graph that you have. Okay? All right. So press pause. Try and graph those points out of recollection. Come back and check. All right, 3, 4. Positive, positives in the first quadrant. So over 1, 2, 3 in the right, to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4 up. Right there is, we'll call it A. That's my first point, right? B is negative 2 and then up 2. So right there is B. C is over 1, 2, 3, 4 and up 0. So it's right on the x-axis. That is C. Okay. D says 5 halves. Well, that is 2.5. So I'm going to go over 1, 2.5. And negative a half is down a half right about there. Right? That would be D. Okay? And then E says negative 5, negative 2. Okay, so negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the left. Negative 1, 2 right there. And there is my E. And it is simple as that, folks. It's just plotting points. Remembering that X goes this way. Negative to go to the left, positive to go to the right. And that the y value goes up or down, and it's up if it's positive and negative if it's down, okay? And that should hopefully remind you, again, this is Algebra 1 stuff from a couple years ago for probably almost all of you. So make sure that you are putting your points properly on there. The one thing that I know gets people is 0, and just remembering which one goes which direction. So pay attention to that, okay? All right, so that's all of this. If you haven't noticed already, at the bottom of this page, it gave me the answers. It did that on the other page too. For skill practice 1, it told me all the answers down here. So you can always check yourself on skill practice problems. If you're just doing this on your own and you don't want to watch the video, you could just go through the notes, go through the skill practice, try them, check your answers, see how you're doing. And then come back and watch the video if you need it. Okay? All right, so example 3 here. Okay. All right, let me get to where I'm talking about example 3 here. Okay, so on example 3, it says we're going to try and determine points from a graph. So really, instead of plotting points, we're going to identify what is that point, what is that point, what is that point, and so on. So it's saying, estimate the coordinates of the fire relative to the ranger station. So the ranger station is at 0, 0. A is, looks like left 1 and down 3, so negative 1, negative 3. B is left 2, up 3, so negative 2, 3. C looks like it's about 3.5 and about 1.5. So that's how they wrote it, or they wrote it like that, or they wrote it like that. And all of those are acceptable. Okay? And then D looks like it's over 1.5 and down 2. So that's how they have a negative 2 in the D. And that's it. So maybe take a second, look at number 6, and just try and write down what are the answers. So this was 5, 6 we're going to do here in a minute. And just write each of those points down. Go ahead, press pause, write each of the points, and again, you can just do it like this. A, B, C, and D, like so, okay? Write them in there, press pause, come back and check. So A is over 5, up 4.5, it looks like, 5, 4.5. B is right on the axis, so I went 0 in this direction and then up 3, which means 0, comma 3. For C, I went left 4 and down 2, so negative 4, negative 2. And for D, I went right 2 and down 4, so 2, negative 4, just like that. Simple as that, guys. Again, you can come down here and check your answers, and they all seem to be legit. They wrote 4.5, or you could write 9 halves, but 4.5 is legit too. Okay? All right, one more problem here. Example 4 shows, okay, a bunch of points in a table here. Okay? And then, remember what I said before. The first column is always X, the second column is always Y. So this gives you the point 1, negative 3, 2, negative 5, 3, 1, and so on. They're showing you all these points written right here, and then it wants you to take this and graph them down here. Okay? Now, down here it says tip. The graph shows only quadrants 1 and 4 because all the x, y coordinates are positive, right? Well, if all the x coordinates are positive, I don't have to worry about all this stuff over here, right? So, in other words, when I look at, let's say, skill practice 7, the table shows the number of homes sold in one town over a 6-month period. I'm talking about months, right? There's not going to be negative months. In fact, when we're talking about the number of homes sold, there's not going to be negative homes either. Now, if we're talking about compared to the previous month, maybe this data would look different. But all of these are positive. So when I'm going to graph this, I'm looking at graphing in just the first quadrant. I'd probably start with my graph like that. Okay? So, take a second. First thing I want you to recognize here, and I'll show you this, is these points here, I rewrote them, and you can see that when I rewrite them, that this point again gives me 120, 225, 328, and so on, right? Gives me those points. Go and graph those points a second. Press pause. This is probably the most important one on here because I want you to get something out of this. Press pause, go graph those points, come back and check. Alright, so I've got those points and I go to graph them. I went up by 5s on my graph. I don't have to label everything, right? 15, 20, 25. I only label 25. That way I know I'm going up by 5s. This way I labeled just 5. That way I know I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going up by 1s. And you can do that. You don't have to go up by the same thing here as you go by here. Now you have to be consistent. You can't go up by 5 and then go up by 10, 20, 30, 40. You have to go by 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Or 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, or 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. It can't be 2, 4, 8, 10, 15. Don't go by odd numbers, okay? By odd numbers, I mean you can go by 3s, you can go by 5s, but don't go by 2 and then 3 and then 5. That's not consistent, okay? And the distance between them should be the same. This is a distance of 1, then this is a distance of 1, then this is a distance of 1. 5, and then 5, and then 5, and so on, right? So I'm going to go graph these points, 120, 225, 328, right? There's 30. 4, we jumped all the way up to 40, right? 30, 35, 40. If you want to, because it helps you, go ahead and do it. Right? 5, 45, 6, 30. There's my graph. It didn't ask you to connect them. I don't need you to connect them. This is not a straight line on here because you can see this one's way off what we would call an outlier. But that's not even this section, just throwing it out there. Okay? And that's it, guys. That's the notes for today. Really easy stuff. Identify points or graph points and interpret tables like what do these things mean. And that is a big deal for this section. So your homework, which I will post on Canvas as well, is 3 through 7, 11 through 20, 24 through 26, and 30 through 31. What I would like you to do with that, and I hopefully said this in the video too, is to do it on graph paper. Right? So there are 3 graphs here. So put your 3 graphs on one page. Put the rest of your homework on the other page. I'm going to show you real quick what mine looks like. There's my 3 graphs. There's the rest of my homework. I'll give you that tomorrow. We're not checking homework. We're doing homework quizzes. That's what checks your homework. So work through this. I gave you what those problems were. I will do it again on Canvas as well. And a couple of things I want to make sure that you do realize here. Okay, when I'm looking at these first few problems here, it says interpret the meaning of the ordered pair. Right? Interpret the meaning of the ordered pair. We are doing 3 through 7, so you have to do that in both 5 and 6. Interpret the meaning of the ordered pair. What does it mean? Right? Interpret the meaning. Please make sure that you're paying attention to that. What does the point mean? That's what interpret the meaning is. Okay, of course you just saw the answers in my book. Hopefully you can still do that anyway, okay? But interpret the meaning means explain it. And I know I'm going to have to go over that tomorrow before we take that homework quiz. Other than that, again, this is probably longer than almost any video I'm going to post because I was trying to get a few odds and ends and have you understand how this works, okay? Just make sure I check my notes here if there's anything else that I needed to do. Doesn't look like it. Work through the homework. Come back tomorrow ready for questions. See you at 11 tomorrow. Have a good day.